Stop the cap.
What are my thoughts on the smash and grabs? I thought I already covered this. I don't really have any thoughts on the smash and grabs. Um, I don't have any words of condemnation about the smash and grabs. I look at it like, um, a natural response to the current economic situation for way too many young men in this country. I look at mass shootings with white males very much the same way. It's just how they handle it. With whether they direct it at other groups, which is typically what they do. You know, um, the reason why their employers don't want to pay them is because apparently Jamal is smashing Becky, right? Nonsense. And when it comes to this smash and grab, I mean, you just got to look at a lot of that stuff is happening out in California. I see a lot of videos coming from San Francisco, the Bay Area, and just look at the economic disparity between Oakland and the Bay Area where the shops are, right? I mean, it's probably one of the most segregated areas in the country, by in terms of neighborhood. There was a demographic map that I found. I just Googled it. I said, give me the demographics, and it's like white people, and they live next to the Asians, and then the blacks and the Hispanics live next to each other. And then you got that one area right outside Chinatown where they literally share an intersection. But I'm not surprised. Like, and people always want to make it a racial thing. You'll see white people writing comments like 1350, or black people commit 80% of crimes, or what else will they throw up? It's always the same people, usual suspects. I mean, completely ignoring the historical context of this country and how black people have been discriminated against and marginalized. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, and I said this in my previous video, white America has the black people that it deserves. I feel the same way about South Africa when I see South Africa and I see crime in South Africa. I'm like, Europeans came there, took all the land, took all the diamonds, and black people live in squalor. So who do you think is going to commit the crime? The black people. And you end up with these, white racist or conservative voices that want to try to make a pathology about it. Like, oh, they're not hardworking, and oh, they need Jesus, they need religion. You know how I feel about religion, is just trying to get people to act and behave and fall in line, despite the fact that they don't have the necessary things that they need. And I just look at the country and stagnant wages over the last like 40 years, and the elimination of unions, the elimination of pensions. You got AI now, jobs going online. Like, even the highly skilled people, they don't want to pay them. I don't know why but look at the number of strikes that are going on right now. Right? I don't know why, other than racism, why when we have conversations about the rise in crime, like, why anybody can't just simply acknowledge that nobody wants to pay. The average cost of a home in America is $430,000. The average salary is $56,000. For African Americans, it's less. And whatever black parents, don't have, they can't give to their children. So, like, each subsequent generation is worse off than the last. And so you get down to the millennials, who are the ones that are committing all these crimes. And again, they're even in more, dire straits, right? Because, the silent generation, has, like 17% of the wealth. The boomer generation, I think, has like 53% of the wealth. And the Gen Xers, I forget what their percentage is, but I know that the millennials only have like 5% of the wealth. So what do you think Zillennials have? They have nothing, Now, arguably, it could be said they just graduated high school, they're in their early 20s. Obviously, they haven't had any period to accumulate anything. But the fact that the millennials, which are their parents, only have 5% of the wealth, and these are the people that, that had kids like in their early 20s. The fact that the millennials don't have anything, popping. What do you think the youngest demographic has? Then you sprinkle on, race, right? There's no money to go to college. There's no money to support the kids like that. What do you think you're looking at that point? And I just think a lot of times these me saying what I'm saying is fruitless. Because you just get the people that at the end of the day, their brain is going to their brain doesn't want to, like, how do I want to say this? Their brain is going to operate in a way where they don't get blamed, right? Like the people who have, or like white America, right? They want to totally disassociate themselves from the past, act like the past has no impact on the present. They don't want it to cost them whatever the solution is. They don't want it to cost them, which is why everything always falls back into behavior, and you need Jesus, and you need to go to church, and morals, and all this other shit. And at the end of the day, all I got to do is pull up the numbers, and you can see that we have too many poor people in this country. Period. You'll get the people that'll jump up, the Fox News people, and they'll say, "Oh, we need more cops on the street." I'm like, you can put more cops on the street. You got too many poor people. And what the pandemic showed people is the mentality of you can't arrest us all. With the whole, and when everybody came out and George Floyd and all that other stuff, I don't care. You can send the whole police department. The police department of 50 police officers cannot arrest a group of 500 people. You know what I mean? It's not even safe for them at that point. I mean, they'll just get mobbed like freaking waves of zombies, or just, a horde of zombies are just washing over them. What are they gonna do? Indiscriminately shoot into the crowd? Yeah, I'm sure the racist would love that. And the people, who they can't relate, especially the boomers. It's like, oh, when I was young, I did this, and I worked at the mall, and blah 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 blah. Yeah, when you were young, college was like $5,000, and rent was $50, and gas was a nickel, and what I'm saying, like I remember, like, not too long ago, my parents were talking about that when I was bitching about gas prices, and they were like, "Oh, honey, do you remember when gas was less than $1?" You know what I'm saying? So it like the way that they think, like it didn't like gas prices didn't jump until after what, 1973, with the OPEC crisis and all that shit. What I mean? They lived in a different world. I remember my great grandmother, whenever I went to see her, as a child, she was, I mean, she was pushing 100 years old, when she passed. But no matter what year it was, even when I was an adult, she would take a nickel, no, excuse me, a quarter. She used to keep all her money in a sock in her breast, in her like nightgown. Just pulled out this big ass sock with just stacks on stacks on stacks, and she would dig in there and give me a quarter. And I'd be like, thank you. It wasn't grandma. I'm not going to tell you what my nickname for my great grandmother was, but I'd be like, thank you. Kiss her on the forehead, and walk away and look at my parents like, the fuck am I going to do with this? And they were like, be nice, be nice. I'm like, fuck am I going to do with this? You know what I mean? But I mean, like, it's just some people, man, they're just out of touch. They're just out of touch. And it's like, hey, you can be out of touch, but it's like, be out of touch and get touched. That's the reality. People talk about, they talk about getting violent, and they're going to do this, and they're going to do that, and all this other nonsense. And, I just look at a lot of these out of shape people, You know what I mean? They can't even get up a flight of stairs without. I'm like, yo, them little 17-year-olds are fast. Sorry, they're fast. You know, three, four of them. You know, your ass is done. You ever see some of these videos? These like these rings and these home cameras, and the guys are, they're, it'll be like some older guy, and he's like out there in his like basketball shorts, and he's got no shoes on. He's trying to fight off like four attackers that are trying to get his car keys. You got some situations where they'll have guns, and they'll try to shoot, and they're missing all their shots, and the kids will run off and whatnot. But I'm like, and what if they have guns? See, people, they don't see, like, even when I talk about guns and self-defense and all that stuff, yeah, it ain't no fun when the rabbit has the gun. I mean, a lot of people think like that. I don't know if they think I think that, but I think a lot of people think when I'm speaking on guns, all the scenarios I'm coming up with in my mind are scenarios where the other person isn't armed. I've come across a lot of people that talk about self-defense and protection and everything else, that their only fantasy in their mind is a bunch of, three, four unarmed attackers. And I'm like, and what if they're armed and you get into a gunfight? That's why these people, some of these Gen Xers, they kill me with their, all you need is a J-frame revolver. And I'm like, what if there's three, four guys and they all got Glocks, you're outgunned, and all you got is freaking six shots? And what if you miss? You know what I mean? They always got it. They're always the guys that got these nickel plated, they reissued the Colt Python. You get all these guys that go out there and they buy these Colt Pythons and these 4-inch Colt Pythons, and they think like, that shit's hitting for something. Yeah, man, see, that's 357 Magnum. But I don't know where the compassion went. It's funny because I see the Christians, they jump up. It's a Christian nation. It's all about Jesus, right? You see this with the evangelicals. And I swear, if you really want to be a Christian in America, read the Bible, then, figure out all the things that Jesus did, and then just do the opposite, right? And just complain about, what the problems are. Don't take the time to try to understand them. Just come up with, these people are pathological and they're reacting like this because they just are the way that they are and they don't want to do. And, it's just intellectual laziness. And as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to people who want to be intellectually lazy, I always feel like, people, getting hands put on them is the best teacher. Because we live in a world where might makes right. Like, even for me, the lines of morality, have severely gotten blurred, because I realize like that we live in a world where the people who push the morality narrative, right? And I'm not saying that morality doesn't exist in its purest form and the idea and the concept of it, because it has to exist, because we're social beings. We're like packs of wolves and stuff like that. Like, there's hierarchies, there's structures, there's things that you can and cannot do, and there's rules and regulations and all the other stuff. And the morality and the religion is supposed to get everybody to curb, their behavior and fall in line. But the thing is it's like, what happens if you got a wolf pack, right? And everybody's supposed to, it takes, 6 wolves to take down a buffalo, right? And on one end you got the hierarchy, right? So the two youngest wolves, they don't, they eat last, right? So the alpha wolves and the two old elder wolves, they eat first because they're the ones that even told the young wolves how to hunt, right? But the older wolves can't eat if they don't have 6 wolves total, right? So if you got 4 older wolves and you got 2 younger wolves, but you still need 6, it's like you still need those younger people. But if it gets to a point where the older wolves are like, yeah, we need you to hunt with us so that we can take down this buffalo, right? But then you get to a point where the 2 youngest wolves, they don't get to eat it all, then it's like, fuck you and your buffalo hunt. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then when people start talking about, respecting your elders and all that other stuff, why do they need to respect you if they can't survive? They can't thrive. They're not eating off of you. Why should they respect? They don't get shit from you. And that's both, interracially and intraracially when you want to talk about, the overall society. Like if talking about black people, like we live in, you know, um, we live in a white society, but we pay taxes as American citizens and all this other shit. But I mean, seriously speaking, it's like, the the government or the society as a whole, it's like an absentee landlord. Shit is breaking all over the place. It's like the fucking water heater went, the air conditioner doesn't work, and this motherfucker still wants you to pay, your rent. You know what I mean? And then they don't get it, like an absentee landlord doesn't get it until you stop paying your rent. Right. So in order for you to, like, you're calling, they dodging you, they don't answer the phone. You know what I mean? They get, do do do. You know what I mean? Like shit's not even numbered. Next week the number's disconnected. So you really can't get them on the phone. Right. So it's like, if you're not paying your rent, right, like that's against the rules, right? You're breaking the rules. You're not doing what's right. People who are moral and just, they do what's right. They pay the rent. Right? But it's like people always want to talk about like the little guy and what the little guy is not doing and how that's not right and that's not just and all that. But they got no smoke for the people in positions of power. Like as though the people in positions of power have no moral responsibility, obligation, or duty to the society. And I notice this about like especially the conservatives, man. I don't know what they're smoking. But when it comes to the little guy, it's always like they only see the little guy when it's them. When the little guy is anybody else, like, like it's like they can't even relate to people that aren't freaking, white Americans or some shit like that. They keep their brain, like they just can't relate to the shit. And we got some black people, some coons out here, that are the same way that these black people that want to get a pat on the head, right? But they always kill me with that. So you got to break the rules to get somebody's attention. You know what I mean? It's just like with the Colin Kaepernick shit, that happened with 2020 with George Floyd. White people will be like, oh, y'all need what did they say? They were like, black people, you can protest, but you have to protest, peacefully. Don't be out there tearing shit up, right? Because black people were tearing shit up. So then Colin Kaepernick takes a knee, and then they're mad about that. Oh, you need to stand. He's disrespecting the troops. Even though at the very beginning of his protest, he told them exactly why, he's taking a knee. Because of the way that, black people were being treated in this country when it came to police brutality and the long history of police brutality. But nah, they still didn't want to see it. You know what I mean? Like, so, the way I just look at it, I'm like, look, eventually people get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And white people want to continue with the same old tired narratives. I guess they still think they work, even though on social media, by and large, they've been dismantled. Like people can go point for point about that. Like you're not making sense. Like even like Cap, we talk about Detroit all the time. And you get these white people that are like, yeah, the reason why the auto industry left is because the rise in crime. It's like, first off, Detroit didn't become a majority black city until 1980. The auto industry was already leaving somewhere around 1970. They started to position themselves, to lead. You had, I forget what it was. I'm going to say it was like General Motors had stocks in Mitsubishi and Suzuki, I believe. You know what I mean? I'm like, isn't that supposed to be your rival? Right? Again, a lot of these car companies, the parts they swap parts out. The parts are interchangeable, the frames and all that other good stuff. You know what I mean? So they were drifting away from all cars being manufactured in America. They were trying to make things cheaper, elsewhere. There's people that went to, got paid and went to Japan, like Edward Deming, who basically helped the Japanese with their quality control. And a lot of people regard him as a sellout. The Japanese revere him, and they give out the Demings Award every year for the company that has like the greatest quality control. Globalization changed a lot. But you get these people that they want to say, oh no, New York, Detroit was fantastic and it was great, and there was a white middle class and there was a little bit of a black middle class and it was great, and then the niggas took over, and that's the reason why Detroit fell, not because the auto industry was saying, hey, let's make cars over right across the water in Windsor where we can pay Canadians less, which is the Windsor Chrysler factory, which they shut down, a few years ago. You know what I mean? Like these people's whole rendition of history is just completely off, and it's just steeped and bathed in racism and the blatant facts you can't even point out. Because like you'll have people that'll act like, yeah, there were drive-bys in the plant. There were gang shootings in the plant in the early 90s, and that's why the auto industry left, because the blacks took over and they were having the shootouts on the street, and then the shootouts rolled into the plant. You know what I mean? And they had to stop assembly because there were rival gangs shooting at each other in the plant, these rival black gangs, and that's why the auto industry left Detroit. No, it's because they didn't want to fucking pay people. And most of them moved down south to Alabama, Tennessee, Memphis, and everything, where they could pay those people less. Those people were not when those people got those jobs in Memphis and Alabama and Tennessee, they did not get the same rate that the people got in Detroit. They were not getting the same type of money. They were getting paid less. They were like, oh, well, I mean, it's a podunk area. So, we're in the middle of Appalachia. So, I mean, we can pay you next because the cost of living is cheaper down here. So it translates because everybody all around the country doesn't make the same rate. I mean, they pulled this with who was it? Elon Musk and some other people in the tech industry. They were like the job is for this is X. The job for this computer software engineering job is X. And then people were like, well, shit, why am I staying in California when I can do the job remotely? If I'm working remotely, I'll just go over here and move to, Nevada or Utah or whatever. And then what did the companies do? They said, oh, no, well, we're not paying you that. Why? It's the same amount of work. No, we need you to be in California with these high ass taxes so that all your money goes to taxes, right? Goes to property taxes, goes to the city tax and the local tax. Right, and mind you, all this cuts into, and this is the part that kills me when it comes to these damn conservatives. I got my problems with liberals and there's goofy shit, there's silly shit, everybody should be gay, that all that nonsense. But when it comes to the conservatives, the conservatives really piss me off because, like I said, they will go up here and they will talk about, it's about white Jesus, and it's about the sprinkle of Christ, and it's about we strong families, and we need to have, these families and have good moral, prudent society and all this other shit, right? They say all that. And as soon as you get down to paying men the type of money so that they can, start families and purchase properties and take care of their family and have the children grow up, with a sound mind and a sense of security, all of the companies don't want to pay anybody. Then when you get smash and grabs all over the place, right, because these are the children of the parents that don't make any goddamn money, then all of a sudden, then they want to make it a black thing, or they want to make it a race thing, or they want to, us good white Americans, and see, this is why, we need to completely ignore the George Floyd shit, and this is why we need to not have the reparations conversations. I'm like, actually, it's all the more reason to have the reparations conversation. And like I said, I don't even need to go back to freaking slavery to talk about reparations. I can go through all those policies that were put in place in the 20th century, when it came to redlining, blockbusting, Jim Crow, eminent domain, urban renewal, COINTELPRO, 1955 Highway Commission Act, the denial of FHA loans, and all these discriminatory practices. Black people's houses not being appraised as much. I mean, just the whole thing. Like I said, America has the black people it deserves. It has the black people it deserves. Now, some people may look at it differently. That, well, black people, generally speaking, we're more well behaved than we should be. You know what I mean? But I'm saying in terms of the crime that does exist. You know what I mean? I'm indifferent when crime spills out of the black community and spills on the white people. Like, I'm really indifferent. Before, I used to feel some type of way, be kind of embarrassed, like, damn, you know what I mean? Like, when you're trying to, like, get, like, white people over to your side about, black people's plight. But then, like, after being online, you know what I mean? And diving into all these conservative spaces, these motherfuckers don't give a fuck. So my attitude is, I'm like, get carjacked. Get carjacked, motherfucker. I mean, motherfuckers don't care to the point that they're arrogant about not caring. I'm like, oh, I hope you get fucked up. I hope you get all the way fucked up. And that's just how I feel about it. And unfortunately, like, even with black people, we got black people that got, like, I don't know, like, white people mindset, and they want the stamp of approval, and they're tokens that got over, and they're doing well for themselves, especially the ones that fell through the crack, the ones that get to be the tokens. Oh, they're the worst. They're the absolute worst. And my attitude with them too is, motherfucker, get carjacked. Get your ass carjacked. That's just how I look at it. I mean, this country is falling apart. When it comes to, the inflation, when it comes to, and it really just, it comes down to jobs and manufacturing, and, I don't even understand what America's doing as a whole. They want to be a global superpower and American imperialism and everything, but then it comes down to the corporations that are taking the jobs overseas. And then there's all this argument, oh, capitalism, oh, we can't compete, blah, 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 so therefore we can make these things cheaper. These people can do the same thing elsewhere. And I'm like, okay, so you're cutting your nose off to spite your face. Like, eventually there's going to get a point where, it doesn't matter where you get the products from, American companies are not going to be able to sell those goods to broke American people. So then the markets just kind of fluctuate and shift around the world. Like, whoever has money, and you bring cheap goods in there, and then I guess the whole thing is there's no markets. And this goes back to Michael Rupert's documentary Collapse. That capitalism is based off of the infinite growth. And anyway, I don't think he even said capitalism. It was like all the systems, capitalism, communism, and social. It's all based off of infinite growth. The idea that you have a market that produces, right? So you're the producer, and then you produce the product, and then you sell it somewhere else for a profit. So technically speaking, that region of the world is losing because they have money going out, where you are the one that's producing, so you have money coming in. Right. Even, I mean, you could break this down, macrocosm, microcosm, even the black community, where you got, all these foreigners that come in the black community. They're not allowed to set up shop in the white community or other places. They're like, oh, yeah, you want to set up shop in the black community? Oh, yeah, you can go do that. Another angle that has helped, destroy the black community, with the way that banks lend money out. Oh, yeah, go to the black community and exploit the fuck out of them. And so they go to the black community, they set up shop, they got their little bodegas and shit, and they're vacuuming money out of the community that doesn't benefit the black community. They're right, but they're providing services, right? And then, they go and they send their daughter to medical school and college and all this other type of shit, and that money is never to be seen again in the black community. And so I'm like, you've created a cesspool. So if you get knocked over the head, or you get, accosted, or there's a robbery or smash and grab or whatever, that's a natural reaction. I remember, it reminds me of that Peppermint Patty clip of the Great Race, or whatever it was, Peppermint Patty and the Great Race, when she was like, it's just She said something to the effect of like that's just a natural reaction. That's a woman's natural reaction to a precarious situation or some shit like that. And I'm like, yeah, like all these crime and all that shit that you see, like that's what's going to happen. I don't know where people get this idea that once you let the bottom fall out, like that's what's going to happen. We had the financial crisis, then COVID. Now you got AI. Oh, I can get AI to do it. Like people, like jobs don't even know what to do anymore, right? Everything is online. You feel like distant. Nobody works at companies for 30 years anymore. Japan, you go and you work for a company and you work there for the rest of your life. So there's security there. Here, you don't. If you don't jump around every 2 years, right? Then your wages stay stagnant, right? And then what this country's doing to young men across the board just is just horrendous. I'm like, you're going to pay for that shit. Whether it becomes to if you need soldiers for your militaries, for your imperialism, or when it comes to the increase of the men that are going to end up being criminals, and you're going to have to build more prisons and have a prison industrial complex, and then you got a single baby mama estate because these women, if they can't find a dude, they're still going to have babies. They're still going to have babies. They're going to be a bunch of strong, independent white women running around, single mothers. I mean, the single mother rate in the white community has already freaking, jumped tremendously from, I don't know, the 1960s and the 1970s. And you got liberals running around saying that that's a great fucking thing. You know what I mean? But you got young men that are falling behind and they're engaging in criminal activity. They're getting locked up. We have this whole prison industrial complex. Then when they get out of prison, they can't get a job. So we got high rates of recidivism, right? And I'm like, eventually you're going to have more women taking money out of the system who are on welfare or on child support. And again, you can't squeeze blood from a turnip. And so you end up with a situation where you have, like, even when it comes to infrastructure, even when it comes to vocations and stuff like that, like Mike Rao talking about, the jobs and stuff that young men are not, going into, right? Because one, it has no status with women. And then two, they don't want to pay, or, it's like hokey. It's like, oh, you must pay us to train you, and then you must do an apprenticeship, and then after 8 years you'll be able to make some decent money. Like, and here you got a young man that's trying to get out of poverty and get from living underneath his single mom. I'm like this shit is just you have so many parasites in society right now that try to act like they're the gurus of helping young men. It's bullshit. And mark my words, this society is going to pay for it. And I'm saying anybody can get hit. You know what I'm saying? I could get hit. Anybody can get hit because I'm having this intellectual conversation online, but in regards to just some predatory young guy out here looking for an easy lick, I could just get caught slipping. You get what I'm saying? So, but I'm just looking at this. I'm like, what the fuck are y'all doing? And it's like, man, nobody cares. This is why I say, like, when it comes to like all this, stuff with the whoever's doing it, the oligarch, I'm like, these motherfuckers, either they don't care or they only think to the end of the week, or there's something, mastermind, nefarious, in the background. Because this is the type of shit that brings societies to its knees. It's just, you want to go to war with China over Taiwan? Who's going to fight your war? A bunch of men that you've been shitting on for the past decade or more? You just been shitting on them. Like, oh no, they're gonna have to change some of these laws. They try to do it with the Wade versus Roe or Roe v. Wade, right? They try to do it with that. We need white women to have more white babies. Y'all can't be aborting. We need more white babies, right? That's another thing. You see all these white, whether they're white supremacists or whether they're just concerned white citizens, that are worried about the demographics of America shifting, right? So you got poor people that tend to be black people and Hispanic people disproportionately having kids because they've been operating on prolonged exposure to the poverty for so long. Like, having kids is just having kids, welfare state or not. right? But then you got the people, the white people that created this society that says, that you need to do the right thing, and you must have this before you settle down, and you got to have that. And then even they're screwing over their own kids to where their kids don't have that. So again, and their kids got the cultural mindset of, you don't do this unless you have this, and then they don't have kids, and then as a result, right, their population is in decline. And then they're bitching about it. Right, and then they get on Fox News and say a bunch of stupid shit like Jordan Peterson talking about young men need to man up. That's what they need to do, and they need to stop consuming red pill, and that's what they need to do, and they need to find God because God gives you purpose. I mean, this shit is retarded, and it's just like, I mean, there's a couple people that have come out and basically said, a few things to highlight. What's the white guy's name? Is it Brian Gotham? What's his name? What's the guy's name? I think that's who it is. The bald white guy. What's his name? Is it Gotham? What's his name? I can't think of what his name. No, that's not his name. What's his name? I forget his name. But y'all seen him on Fox News or whatever. He's like a professor at, I think it's NYU or something like that. What's his name? Is it Gotham, something like that? I don't know. I forget. I remembered it and it just left my brain. But nah, man. It's just. I just look at this shit like, what are they doing? Like, if I was the architect of society, I wouldn't be doing none of the shit that they're doing. And then even when it comes to like the moo-ha-ha like elites that, we got more nefarious plans and shit like that. But like, when you look, they're so busy competing against each other, other than the people that go to like the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderberg Group, and sit around Illuminati meetings and all that other stuff. Like your average rich person, they're not concerned with this shit. You know what I mean? Like, they're concerned with, when's the next crash so that I can go out here and, buy everything up and leverage my assets and it's like, and then you got like 1% of people that got 90% of everything. And then these people will still or the society will still sit around. And that's the whole thing. Like, how much oxygen do you have to take out of a room before the people in the room finally concede to the point that they can't breathe? Right? Because like, even people that are in the room and the oxygen is literally slowly being removed from the room, you'll still have people sitting there saying, no, what you got to do is you got to deep inhale. See, that's the problem. See, you're breathing too fast. Your rate of respiration is too fast. See, that's why you can't breathe. It's like, why don't we talk about the motherfucker sucking all the air out of the room? You know what I mean? And then they want to sit there and act like they're better because they can hold their breath longer, or they're breathing at a slower rate as the oxygen level is going down below 20%. I'm like, oh my God, man. Like, I swear. And there's so many of these people like online. You see them in comment sections, just all over the internet. All these like these people that it's like they're in a bad situation. They're in a bad situation. They're like, in other words, like, it's like, motherfucker, we're on the same boat. But they don't, in their mind, like, they have this, like, want to feel better. Like, they've taken on this identity that makes them feel better. Like, they're more disciplined, or they have more something, what's the word that I'm looking for? They just have more something, and it allows them to be a better person and stand there with their hands on their hips. And a lot of people get caught up in that. They get caught up in the patriotism. They get caught up in the idea, of the shit. Like I said, like, going back to the Tim Wine shit about, getting poor. How the hell do you get poor white men to fight for white landowners in the South to keep their slaves that kept them out of a job? I don't need to hire you. I got slaves for that. Like, how do you get poor white men that don't have a pot to piss in to fight to keep your slaves? You fill their heads up full of racial superiority and patriotism or these abstract, intangible concepts. and then they're ready to go out on the field and take a cannon to the chest. I'm like that's some serious psyop, psychological mind fuck type shit. And a lot of people talk about, the brainwashing of the Negro. Nobody has been more brainwashed in this country than white people. Nobody. Going back to, pretty much every comedy special, George Carlson, was it George Carlson, the comedian, the guy that died with the white beard, right? Nobody has pointed that out more than him. These people don't get it. They just don't get it. You still got people walking around as they're paying people less and less and less. You still got people walking around acting like there's some place you can go and apply and get the job and work there for the next 30 years and walk away, with a pension that's going to be transferred over to your wife, and have a hellified, medical benefits that'll also be transferred to your wife, and have some kick-ass life insurance that'll pay off the house, and she'll get to stay in that house for the next, until she dies, and then the proceeds from the house, the equity that was in the house, you'll get to transfer that over to your kids, right? All that shit. That model is I'm not going to say it's completely gone, but because some of the boomers still got that shit going on, but they phased that shit right the hell out. So I mean, we are in, serious dire straits, and it's going to look uglier out here. Like I said, you're going to see more mass shootings, especially as the white boys feel this thing. And I'm saying, black people, I keep trying to tell y'all need to get strapped up, because the white boys, when they get to that moment that they realize that, like, I don't have this, and I thought I was going to be at this point in my life, and it's not happening and whatnot. There's going to be more of them who are going to say, nah, the reason all this is happening is because the niggas is breathing up all my air, right? Then they're going to be sitting there looking at the guys on Wall Street, or looking at the banks, or looking at, the oligarchy and whatnot. They're going to, or they'll be pointing to, doing the party shit. It's because of the liberals. If Donald Trump was up there, my employer would have paid me, $15 more an hour. No, the fuck he wouldn't have. He don't give a fuck about you. He don't give a fuck about you. He don't give a fuck about your family. He don't give a fuck about your whiteness. He don't give a fuck whether you live in a house and can take care of your kids. He doesn't give a fuck. I don't know what y'all don't get about that. He's so busy out here fighting with black people and talking about irrelevant bullshit. You know what I mean? That you don't sit there and be like, hey, what we really need is we need a party that actually supports, the working class people in this country. But y'all blinded by so much fucking racism and who's lazy and who's not, and those people or those there, and we're gonna, make up a characterization of who they are and what they do, because we still believe in white supremacy. We still believe in that. You know what I mean? As long as we're ahead of them, however the system wants to do things, as long as we're ahead of them, we're doing all right. And I swear, like, this country is just fucked. And hopefully, my videos is, I hope like 100 years from now or some shit like that, my videos will be somewhere out there, and motherfuckers will be like, yo, this motherfucker was trying to tell motherfuckers some shit, and they didn't listen. Just like when people now, after, George Carlin or Carlson? Anyway, after he's gone, he's been dead, and now people pull up his, his old comedy specials and his skits and whatnot, and people are like, he was spitting. I'm like, yeah, he was spitting when he was alive, but y'all wasn't paying attention. Now that he's been dead for quite a while, y'all are like, oh, he's spitting. It's fucking dumb. Anyway, that's all I got for y'all. That's my video, SWP. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe. And thank you to a few people that gave donations. Like I said, I'm going to make that video. I'm just going to name everybody, and give shout outs and whatnot. But anyway, that's all I gotta say. I'll be sure to like protect people's identities and stuff. But that's all I gotta say. That's my video. SWP out. Don't forget to comment, share, like, and subscribe.